harness the technologies of tomorrow. Will we see an administration as open to the technology changes that we saw under Obama?
I think it's hard to predict anything about our new president. I hear what he says, but he says one thing one day, and then the same day we'll say something else. So I mean, we're living in an environment where we're going to have a lot of new things happening that are already underway. The autonomous vehicle, robotics, AI, machine learning, all of those are going to have tremendous impact in a positive basis. On the other hand, it's also going to have a dramatic impact, I believe, over time on employment and his ability and desire to put people back to work. So they're two countervailing forces working against each other. I hear what he says, and I don't think he comes with any particular background in this area, but it'll be interesting to see what he initiates. He does have some involvement with some of the people out in Silicon Valley, and Dave, I'm sure, would have a better insight as to which technologies Donald Trump will be helpful with.
Dave, which technologies will Trump be helpful with?
Well, I don't know if he'll be helpful with technology specifically, but I think he'll create a lot of chaos and volatility. And even though that might not be great for the rest of America, in general, volatility is friendly to most entrepreneurs. We can react a lot faster than traditional businesses, and there'll probably be opportunities created. I think also because it sounds like there's a high likelihood of repatriation of foreign and overseas capital, that's probably going to be good for all boats. I think you'll see a lot more investment, both in companies and funds, and a lot more M&A activity. And I have a feeling because of the relationship with Jared Kushner and his brother Josh Kushner, who actually is a VC, I hope there is a little conflict and that maybe some knowledge is passed along from both him and my former boss Peter Thiel as well.
Alan, talk about potentially the M&A that we might see to come. It's odd, we see perhaps a more positive environment coming from the promises from Donald Trump, but on one side he's then talking against the AT&T Time Warner tie-up. What do you think about the M&A atmosphere?
I agree with Dave. I think it's going to be we're going to have a positive environment if the president implements the things he's talked about doing, and if Congress will support him on it. If they end up lowering taxes, if they do repatriation of enormous swells of capital that have been abroad for the last umpteen years, that augurs very well for a very active M&A activity, because corporations will have money, and we've seen them do buybacks and pay dividends. I think acquisitions is a very fertile area to put money to work.
Acquisitions could mean exits for startups that you help support. But it's interesting also the talk of trade. We heard Alan there talk of it's potentially the robots that are at the key issue of jobs, not the fact that it's actually trade at stake. But how much are your startups worried about perhaps barriers and borders coming up?
There are concerns. I think there's concerns both in being able to sell to customers overseas and buy goods and integrate those. There's concerns about immigration. Potentially, the new administration might have a tougher policy on letting entrepreneurs come to this country. I spent a lot of time actually with a bunch of folks, Brad Feld and others, on trying to help put a startup visa program together. There is now kind of an international entrepreneur rule that will allow people to come in with maybe $250K in capital, but that's not really legislation yet. So I think there's concerns about whether we can still conduct trade freely, both in the tech sector as well as more generally. I think there's probably some concerns maybe about the regulatory environment changing. And again, that could be for better or for worse. It's not necessarily clear, but you might see a loosening of a lot of regulatory agencies that could be perceived as beneficial for companies going public and that, but it could also create some consumer privacy concerns as well.
Alan, if you... please, carry on.
One of the things I take exception with Dave on is that the market in general, meaning the business community, and I would include startups and anyone else involved in business activities, hates surprises. And what concerns me more than anything else as we look forward to the public markets and even the private markets is, will the president be so mercurial that there won't be a confidence in the consistency of his program? And if that happens, that causes people to hold on to their money and not to be and to be reluctant to put it to work or to do startups. And we don't know you know, where we're going, frankly, at this moment. We'll see it pretty fast, I think.
And Alan, are you worried about putting your money to work right now, therefore?
Well, the venture business is a very interesting one. It's kind of survived in all presidencies, high interest rates, low interest rates, and there's an enormous entrepreneurial wave going on in this country, and I think it would be hard to stop it. On the other hand, there are exogenous events and activities that could be surprises. I mean, we don't know what this health change in Obamacare will do if the president really goes through with this and doesn't find a replacement. Will that impact people who want to start up companies and are afraid to leave? It sounds strange, but you know, there are existing healthcare programs that they have, and if that potentially involves giving it up to start something, that could be if you have pre-existing conditions, although he said he'll protect that. I think it's all uncertainty at this point.